Okay, Derrick Gibbs.
Huh. All righty. Good evening, and thank you to the General Law Committee for having me this evening. And speaking, my name is Derrick Gibbs from Budr Cannabis. We have written testimony in support of Bill 5350. Make sure I get that right. I'm here again to speak before you regarding the allowing the social equity owners to sell their equity prior to the 7 years. I continue to say that this is an option. It is not a requirement. It is not a force. It just gives them the option of the ability to do so. And we're looking for ways to work with the Social Equity Council to create a pathway with a few recommendations that we did present to them to allow us to work together. Social equity is the fabric of the industry in general, especially butter cannabis. And we've proven that in really many ways. One, with our social equity plans, our work development plans, as well as putting our businesses in disproportionate impacted areas throughout the community. And I can kind of list even more things. At Butter Cannabis, we've changed the lives of our social equity applicants, which happens to be my direct family members. I've said this many times. They're my mother, they're her cousins, and they're also her sisters that are involved in this. And our social equity applicants, ironically, no longer meet the social equity requirement anymore based on the regulatory requirements on a financial standpoint, which I think is one of the beauties of the program and sort of what was sort of the inception of this and how we put this whole thing together. We're simply trying to continue that by creating generational wealth and allowing them to sell their equity when they would allow to. This regulation is looked at as a protection against predators, and I don't think that I would be considered a predator, considering that's my mother, considering that it's my aunts and my mother's first cousins. And if you look at a lot of the other social equity applicants, not just my situation, but Fine Fettle was here with Ben Zacks. They've known each other for over 20 years, and the list can go on in terms of the relationships that these social equity applicants and these owners and backers have. This isn't a situation where they've met people on the street and have said, "Come on over, let's do a partnership." And if that is the case, many businesses, you said you were a business owner, many businesses in America have even been set up that way. So I don't agree a lot with that. I've heard the argument that the market hasn't matured and it takes more than 3 years for the market to mature. And they feel that by having the social equity applicant sell within the 3 years, they're not maximizing their return on their investment. Well, let me just state some facts about maturity in the market. Over the last 2 years, we've seen Connecticut cannabis sales flat every month. Over the last 2 years, we've seen four social equity stores close. Over the last 2 years, we've seen more stores open, but flat revenue throughout the state. That's simply meaning that customers are just going to other stores. You open a store, you're no longer going to my store, you're going to Ben's store, you're going to someone else's store. And then I'll also say that over the last 2 years, we've seen several social equity licenses expire prior to those businesses opening. So they've had the license, they were able to get everything started, but unfortunately, their time expired and they weren't able to do anything with those licenses. So when we keep talking about maturity and the mature market, I'm having a hard time really understanding that. And I also have a hard time listening to people that perhaps are not actuaries or can predict the future of the markets and know when these things would be mature. Um, and then the last thing that I will say, and I know I said it was the last thing, but the last thing that I will say is that we had people enter our market that never opened a store. They bought a license, non-social equity. They never opened a store. They never found a location. They didn't hire staff and they sold those licenses before all of that. So we keep talking about maturity. They did all that before that. These people walked out of here with millions. The difference was they weren't social equity. They were able to sell those licenses because they weren't social equity applicants and they were able to sell them when they wanted to. And I still have a hard time after hearing all the stories and all the people that have come here today, and respectively, to hear we're over the edge and we're almost there. These are actual events that have happened for people, and I continue to hear from folks that um, there's people that still want this in place that are social equity. Well, we brought a bunch of people here today, and I didn't hear one of them saying that. And I haven't even seen anybody as a social equity applicant ever come here to tell anybody that they want to keep that in place. I've never seen them, never heard of them, and I'd like to meet them. Love to meet them. If they would be introduced to me, if you know someone, please do. And I'll end my time there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Ciccarello.
Thank you. So um, this is a very interesting, complicated, new area of business, right? But I keep hearing about how it's overregulated and the kind of rules that Connecticut puts in place hinders the growth and success of that industry. And other states are doing things differently, and maybe the market for that your industry is better in Mass or New York or somewhere else, not in Connecticut. I do want to just make a very clear point that it's not specific just to your industry. Connecticut is really hard on businesses.
Yes.
So it's not just your industry. So I just wanted to make that point because I hear a lot of people saying that, and they're not just solely picking on this industry. We have to do a better job of supporting businesses here in Connecticut and listening. If you notice, I haven't spoke too much because I'm trying to take it in. I don't know a lot about it. So I try not to talk about things that I don't know about so I don't look like an idiot. But what I'm trying to understand is, and the good representative asked a question about having a, kind of a council or a group or a chamber. Just like in all businesses, you have the chamber, but then you also have the social equity council. And it seems as if there's a discrepancy. I talked to the hemp people, I talked to the private equity, the social equity groups, and I'm trying to wrap my head around this very interesting business. But our job is to kind of listen, take it all in, and we're hearing kind of conflicting things. So can you maybe tell me why you believe that the council or group put together to represent the social equity applicants are in disagreement with you and the rest of the applicants that want to be able to sell their share earlier than is allotted?
I mean, it's kind of a complicated question, if you will, but I would say the first start is that it's difficult for people that are not in the industry to come here to talk about something that they also are not involved in. It's to say as if you ran the Social Equity Council. You mentioned that you're not familiar with the industry and you're not in it. You're not in it every day, and we understand that. But the folks that are also a part of the council are a bunch of people that are doing a great job, but they're also not in the business either. So they're kind of hearing things and making decisions, so forth and so on. Some of them in insurance, some of them are in banking, a lot of business owners, some nonprofit organizations, but they're not in the business. And so it's very hard. I sit on many boards. It's very hard to be on a board and like an insurance company board. I'm not in insurance every day, and so to make decisions and hear what they have to say, it's very difficult to do that. And typically when I'm in the board meeting, I say, what does the staff have to say? What's the staff's decision on this? And typically I go with what the staff says because they're the people that are in it every day. In this particular case, guess who the staff is? That happens to be the people that are in the industry. It can't be a people that unfortunately it can't be people that sit in an office and have never ran a store.
I totally get
Right?
that. I mean, I completely get it, right? Totally understand where you're coming from, and that does make sense. It's actually funny, you know. It's like you're not going to ask your plumber a medical question, right? I get it.
Yeah,
That whole concept. I'm with you on that. And I know there's a lot of smart people on that council, and I think Bree is
absolutely.
phenomenal and great. It's just I'm just, and I agree with what you're saying. You know, you guys made an investment, and if you could make more money by selling it now, you should be entitled to do that. And it just I'm just kind of stuck of how the council can't get in line with what you guys are asking for. That's just kind of where I'm stuck. I'm trying to see what is the other side. Anytime I'm trying to make a decision, I see both sides of the issue,
Mhm.
and then make a decision, you know, with taking all of that into consideration. But you guys are kind of like so far apart on
Yeah.
that. And I just don't understand why you guys can't come to a middle ground. Because if you guys came to us and said, hey, we have an agreement, I'm sure we would say, okay, that makes sense.
We've made many. I also think that people are taking this is a new industry, so a lot of people are not familiar, including myself. I've never been, I haven't been in this for 15 or 20 years. You know, this is a new industry. And so the other thing is that people are taking educated guesses on industry trends, market. You know, it's just like betting on a stock, right? The conversation continues with maturity of the market and the belief. Again, this is information that I received from folks is that the maturity, that the market hasn't matured yet, and that if the social equity applicant or anyone, specifically the social equity applicant, sells prior to the 3 or 7 years, that the market hasn't matured yet, and they're not going to get the bang for their buck. But how are you going to
Predict it. Yeah,
predict
I
that? You
get it.
know, we're predicting stocks. I mean, if any of you could predict a stock and tell me to invest in it, you know, that'd be great. You know, hey, invest in this and then you'll make X. But there's no way for them to predict that at all. And the facts that I presented to you earlier regarding no one brings that up in conversation for social equity stores closing. They don't bring up that the market has been flat for the last 2 years, making 25 to 28 million dollars a month. I never even hear these conversations. No one brings up the fact is that there were stores that weren't able to even get open prior to the expiration date. These are facts that are happening within the industry. And to think that all of a sudden we're going to go from 28 million and in 2 or 3 years it's going to go 50 million. I mean, that's a heck of a prediction to be making. And of course, I think that I would be in favor of that, of course, right? And I want to stay in the market. But if I was a person that said, well, I don't know if I want to stick with this stock. It's at the peak. Apple's doing good. And I've been in it for 5 years. And you know what? Today's my day. I say I want to get out. There's no one there saying you can't.
Yeah.
You can't get out.
I get where you're going with that. And again, I agree with you, right? You want to make a new investment. You see something else. Maybe you did find that stock. You got some good stock advice. And if you do, let me know. And you want to take that equity out of the business that you're in now, and then you go and invest it somewhere else. I totally get that. And I think what we should do is, and I know, I almost said Representative McGee, but Brent McGee is a very reasonable guy, great guy. I'll reach out to him, have a conversation, try to educate myself more. And maybe we could get in a room together and try to figure out a middle ground there, because it's hard for us to sit here and make those decisions. And I think it's important that you guys come to an agreement.
Yeah.
But I do want to thank you for answering that question, coming up, testifying, and we'll see if anyone else has
Appreciate
any other questions.
Thank you again. Good to see you again.
You too.
Senator Chigarella is going to take on the role I tried to play last year, trying to find a happy medium. I don't know if the happy medium exists, but I do think
You never know.
I know we got,
Number two.
yeah. Look, I think, as you know, I was sort of hard person to convince on this issue. I've softened over the last year. I think the examples that are presented both today and that I've read about for the last few months have pushed me closer to where I think you would hope that I would be. And so I'm going to try to figure out what the structure is and what the protections are that I need to put in place that will give my comfort level some ease. But also speaking with the Social Equity Council to try to determine what their continued opposition is and what they are worried about that maybe I'm no longer worried about. So I think Senator Chigarella is correct that there's got to be a space that we can operate thoughtfully in that allows people to maximize their return on their investment if they no longer see the economic gain that they thought they were going to receive. We've got to give people an equitable chance out of the industry and out of the space if they see a good opportunity for them. Yeah, that's mine.
Okay.
And everything else, I think the bill reflects where you're trying to get me to go last year. So
Yeah.
you were right a year ago on that. So maybe you're right a year ahead of me this time too.
Good.
If I could just,
Representative Tagliano.
thank you. I just want to let you know, I've been in business 30 years, right? I've had tons of businesses. I had the worst year we ever had last year. So don't feel bad. Traffic is down, costs are up. Connecticut's a tough place. So I don't know if it's exclusive just to your industry that you're flat and not growing. I can tell you there's many other people experiencing the same thing,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. But they have the option to get out. Yeah. That's the, right. That's the,
I don't want to prolong the conversation, but can't you do a side agreement right now and sell? Can't
No,
you
we
pay
have,
out your
we've had this
people?
conversation.
We've had this conversation.
Yes,
So I didn't
we-
want to bring it up here because I know you guys are working on this. I'm sympathetic. I get it. But you could, in all due respect, sir, you could buy out your mom right now. You could do it right now. She signs
No.
something where it doesn't take effect for 5 years. Call it a
No,
day.
no, we've looked at this.
Okay.
That's the whole point. That's why I'm here. That's why we're all here. If that was the case, I wouldn't be here. If I could buy out my mom or someone or the social, that's not the case here. And I don't want to also make it seem as if that's my whole strategy with this either. I talked about this before. My mom is, I don't want to give out her age, but
Smart man.
right? But
I'm
the-
sympathetic. And
Yeah.
I'm also sympathetic to you say that people aren't even qualified to be social equity anymore. That was your testimony, right?
yeah,
Because I qualified. I grew up in Waterbury the first 14 years of my life. I was a social equity. I could have been a social equity applicant. So I understand your frustration. I really do. I just don't understand how in a sense of setting up an LLC or a business agreement, you just sort of can't work it out and come up with a contract that we were sort of jokingly saying back here, Otani's going to get paid for 40 years. You could really write anything you wanted to a contract if these folks really needed to get paid right now. But maybe I'm wrong, but I'm so open to your issue.
yeah. They can get
No doubt
paid,
about it.
but there's no equity exchange. They can get paid, but there's no equity exchange. So are you going to buy someone's house for X amount of dollars and they tell you, well, you don't own it. You don't get the deed. You can stay here, but no deed.
Choice now. Okay. All right.
Okay.
I'm going to let it go. No, I would just say, how come you can't write into the contract that the shares come to me in 5 years? Here's your money now. The contract says I own them in 5 years.
You
But
get
you're
the
still
deed in
waiting,
5
but
years.
He's not.
You get the deed in 5 years. You pay me from my house
Yeah.
today,
Well,
and
that's
in
what
5
you're-
years you're gonna get the deed.
You know,
You want
but
to do
that's
that
what you're
deal?
looking to do. No, I wouldn't do the deal. I was trying to find a way for you to get around the problem you're having. That's all.
Okay.
That's it.
All right.
Thank you. And I'm just, I guess, share my thinking. So we're all talking a lot.
Okay.
Initially, I guess I wasn't buying the argument that you want to sell it earlier because the business is going to go down in value in the future, right? Just because you're a businessman, right? One efficient market theory, a business is worth what it's worth, right?
Mhm.
And so being able to sell it early because the sales are going to go down in the future, I wasn't necessarily buying that argument.
That the
Because
sales are gonna go down in the future?
people have said that they want to be able to sell in year 3 because they know after year 5 the value of the business is going to go down. But why would you buy it then as a buyer,
I hear what you're saying.
knowing it's going to go down? And
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
in stock markets, efficient market,
Yeah.
the prices,
Yeah.
somewhere is going to a price, you're at that place right away. But I was looking at it the wrong way, right? The way is because we have 2 different timeframes, right? There's a 3-year and a 7-year. So why shouldn't they both be at 3 years is
Correct.
one thing. And then the other is looking, bringing forward today to people the examples of we don't have those restrictions on the partner. And so it does put the social equity applicant in an unfair position. So that's why I'm coming around one, the way I think I had been looking at it in the past. The argument that was put forward, I disagreed with, but the overall place we're going, I think, is the right way.
Yeah.
Like I agree for other reasons. So
Good.
that's what I wanted to share. So
Okay.
that's all.
Appreciate it.
So, all right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Take care. Have a good night.
All right. Norman Plude.